Sam, and I'm here doing the full moon in Gemini forecast. As it says here, the story in your head. How does it work? These are all Gemini questions, and I'm going to be talking about that today. This full moon in Gemini is in, again, the Gemini Rashi and Punarvasu Nakshatra. And again, this is for all of us. This is a general forecast, but you can also find out what it means for you, because this full moon in Gemini, if you're a Cancer, it's a 12th house full moon. If you're a Pisces, it's a 4th house full moon. So I'm going to be talking about all these things today, so stick around. Please like the video. Clicking like helps a lot more than you know. It pushes the video higher in relevant video searches. Also, please leave a nice comment. Comments also help more than you know, as it raises the video in searches. Many times with hundreds of likes, there are only a dozen comments and they can be disproportionately negative. So be positive. Let me know if you like this. Even just a few words really helps. So subscribe, ring the bell to get notified of upcoming videos. Yes, I would appreciate that. It does really help. And I run that little commercial before because it does actually help engagement and help people like the video and subscribe. So let's get into it here. As you see what I have here, but how does it work? This is a Gemini theme, and you see I have the Gemini green here. And the Gemini green that's the color of Gemini, the color of green grass. And Gemini is that sign where we are questioning, and it's opposite the sign of Sagittarius. As you can see on this chart, we have this MO, this moon up here in Gemini, and then we have Sun and Mercury down there in Sagittarius. So every full moon is a balancing point, bringing into contrast where the sun is, because the sun and moon came together in Sagittarius a couple of weeks ago. So we're all living this Sagittarius cycle. Those of you who watch my updates regularly or who are members, as it says here, Robbie Love says new member. So those who are watching know that I did a new moon forecast a couple of weeks ago where it was the new moon in Sagittarius. And by the way, again, those who are members, they also had the Sagittarius forecast for their sign. Like for me, I'm Gemini, so this Sagittarius cycle, excuse me, is a 7th house cycle for me, right? Which means relationship themes are happening this whole month for me because my ascendant is Gemini. So again, what I'm saying is whatever your ascendant is, your rising sign, you're in basically a Sagittarius cycle right now, because we had the new moon in Sagittarius. The halfway point is the full moon, which brings this balancing, harmonizing, contrasting, integrating quality. So what it means is that we don't actually learn something thoroughly and completely until we integrate its opposite. So we don't really learn the Sagittarius lesson. This is in general for all of us. We're in a Sagittarius cycle now, which is, what do I believe? And what do those beliefs get me in the end? And these beliefs give me hope for the future. And what are the beliefs, right? So we're all feeling this sense of optimism or lack of optimism or questioning of what do we believe right now, because the sun is in Sagittarius and we had the sun and moon come together. The opposite point, the full moon, every full moon is in opposition to the sun aspect, where we're trying to integrate emotionally, psychologically through our consciousness. That's what the moon is, how it feels to us. The sun is, this is what I'm doing. I'm following what I believe. That's Sagittarius. The moon is, but does it make sense to me? But how does it work? Because our beliefs, Sagittarius, are not going to be very helpful to us if we don't understand them, if we can't explain them to ourselves, if they don't make sense to us, then it's just blind faith. Then it's just dogma. And we can trade one dogma for another, and people do. People do trade one dogma for another all the time. By the way, particularly in this new age, particularly things like astrology. People have abandoned, let's say, Christianity or other kinds of religion that didn't work. So now they believe in, and their sort of religion or their belief is astrology and new age, and I just believe all of it. But how does it work? Do you know how it works? So the Gemini cycle, this Gemini full moon, is to bring into focus this question. Do you know how the things you believe in work? But how does it work? That's the question. And, over the weekend, we had this situation. We had this 1/11, January 11th, over the weekend. And January 11th, 1/11. And I made a post, kind of making fun of that a little bit, like, January 11th, 1/11. And I made a joke. It said means absolutely nothing, right? So we can find meaning in anything, and people will say, what's wrong with people believing in that? Well, there's nothing wrong with it, but what does it mean? How does it work? What is it? What is the 1/11? What is that kind of arbitrary numerology, right? I did a class yesterday because I taught a class through my Oracle membership level. You can see, by the way, here, I'm teaching, in fact, this weekend even, I'm teaching some classes that are available to the Oracle members. Click and check that out. But I was teaching a class, and one of the people in the class said, well, what if you're an old soul? Does that help your astrology chart? Right? And again, this whole concept of an old soul, like, again, we get into all of these beliefs. We believe in old souls and twin flames, and, well, your soul chose this assignment, this mission. Your soul chose. Again, it's not like those things are wrong, let's say, but how does it work? What does that really mean? And ultimately, unless you remember your soul choosing it, then it's not really very effective to just tell yourself that your soul chose it and just so you can have something to believe in. It's just another kind of dogma. It's just trading one dogma for another. Well, I don't believe in that anymore. Now I believe in this. Now I believe that my soul chose this. Okay, so that belief makes me feel better. And I believe in the synchronicity of it. Okay. Again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with believing it. And I believe that I'm an old soul. And I've always, again, in many ways, we have to be careful because the ego hangs out in all of those places. I'm an old soul, so I understand this. And, I'm looking for my soulmate, my twin flame, and all of these things that, again, I don't know if that's true. Maybe it's true, but who knows? And again, how does it work is the thing that the Gemini wants to know. This is why, to me, it all redounds to, okay, it's fine to believe that stuff, but how does it work? And if you can't explain it, if you don't really, then you don't really understand it, and you're just blindly believing in something when there's really no need for that, because the truth is miraculous enough. And by the way, I have a lot of Gemini energy, so this is why I'm a bit of a, I sort of confound people this way. They don't understand. I'm not trying to be a buzzkill or rain on people's parade, but I'm also saying, look, rather than just believe in a fairy tale that you can't explain or understand, why don't you look at what's really going on? Because it's actually pretty amazing. It's pretty remarkable. And that will support a belief system that actually you understand and that actually benefits you. And I say actually benefits you because, yes, having beliefs are going to benefit us because belief gives us hope. Okay, I understand. But again, you can have belief and have it make sense. Believe in things that make sense because actually it does make sense. But if it's just grasping at anything to believe something and not understand it. And again, this is why I teach, because it's like, no, I want you to understand. Once you understand how it works, then it's so much more empowering. Again, astrology is the perfect example, right? So in the class yesterday, I was explaining, I mean, it's this this group of classes, and by the way, it's available to you if you want as well. And where I'm talking about the the evolutionary, that, you know, the evolutionary process of the planets through our karma and all of that, you know, these evolutionary processes through our karma and through the planets, and that whole quality, the evolutionary process, that we are the embodiment of all the planetary energy. And that's actually what astrology is. That's actually what karma is. That's what astrology is. That's what you are. That's who you are as an embodied being. You aren't the body. You aren't the emotions. You are the spirit. That's your nature. And then the karma is wrapped around the spirit. And then we get stuck and lost in the kind of whirlpool spinning, twisting of the karma. And we forget that we're the spirit. So the planets are the evolutionary forces. We're not just evolving somehow. Evolution of consciousness isn't just some thing that we can never figure out. Well, I believe that. Again, the point isn't to believe it. You're right. Okay, you're right to believe it. But what if you knew it? What if it wasn't just something you believe, but something that you understood? You not only understood, but understood how it worked. You can observe it. You can see it. And you can work with it. Actually, not just on some abstract level, but understand, oh yeah, this is that part of my mind. This is that part of my daily habits. Well, that's what astrology really is. It's not just something to believe in, it's something to know. And we're meant to know it, actually. So again, this is the difference. Of course, you can believe in it, but it's easy to believe in something so beautiful as that. But it literally, how does it work? So that's the Gemini thing, is integrating the beliefs of Sagittarius with the details, the structure, the curiosity, the joy of Gemini, because that's actually what drives Gemini and drives Mercury, is that things are interesting. And we all know if you can make learning fun, for example, then people will learn. So, you know, I don't know if I make it fun, but I try to. I have fun. So maybe people see that. But people have often said, oh, you're so funny. I'm not usually trying to be funny, but maybe just in general, you know, the more I keep talking, the more I'm eventually going to find humor in something, because that's actually also what Gemini is. That's what Mercury is. And think of what those things are. Think of what humor is. It's finding, it's like a comparison, contrast, and finding discontinuity in certain details and finding the humor in them, for example. But it also requires a lot of dexterity, and questioning our own beliefs is really what the divine quality of Mercury and Gemini is. So this full moon is now bringing in this sort of questioning of what you believe. How does it work? And noticing the story in your head, because everything is this story. You're following all these stories. Again, I said a few of them. And again, when I was saying earlier, look, there's nothing wrong with believing in twin flames and this and that. I'm not. And again, people sometimes don't like when I say it because you're so judgmental. Maybe there is judgmental. I'm being judgmental. And if that comes off that way, I'm sorry. It's not meant to be judgmental. It's to point this out, though. That, by the way, all of us are judgmental. All we do is judge. That's a part of life. It's the Jupiter part. We're judging if this is, good or bad, taking us to something higher or something not. So it's not like I'm the only one who judges. We're all judging, frankly, and even saying that I'm judging is a judgment, for example. So it can turn into an infinite regressive spiral if we're not careful. But the point is to point things out and to notice. And again, that's what Mercury is noticing patterns. Everything is a pattern. You're following a pattern. And the pattern, everything is pattern recognition. And I want you to understand this. growth doesn't occur until you start recognizing patterns. You know, there's a planetary order: Sun, Moon, Mars, and those three are like primal, instinctive, like spirit, mind, and then fight for survival. That's Mars. You know, defending what we, defending ourselves and defending our primal sense of right and wrong and survival. Growth doesn't start until we hit that kind of Mercury, where we start recognizing patterns, pattern recognition. Recognizing a pattern is saying, okay, maybe this thing that I'm arguing about, or this thing I'm defending, or this thing that I know I'm right about, this is right, this is wrong, which is Mars. Maybe that's not right. And maybe we start to question, and we can start to play with those ideas. That's that story that's then running in our head, that's running in your head about what's right, what's wrong, starts to become in question. And so then the next planet, Jupiter, then gives meaning to it. Because we can recognize a pattern and say, okay, yes, this is a mistake. This was, this was right. This was something that, let's say, that I'm doing wrong. Maybe the reason I'm sick all the time isn't just because I have bad genetics. Maybe I can do something about it. Maybe I can eat better food too, and wake up earlier and breathe and move my body. Maybe that's also part of it. Maybe it's not just blah, 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 whatever. So we recognize a pattern, and that changes the story. Think of all the stories you have about everything. Everything you're following in life comes from a story. Well, it's like this. The world is this. There's this. And then we give meaning to the story with Jupiter. Mercury and Jupiter are incredibly important for the spiritual process to really begin. Because before that, we're just kind of instinctively acting in a very Mars kind of way. As much as we might think we're not, we are. We're very programmed. We're very black and white. This is right. This is wrong. I'm going to do it. If you bother me, I'm going to react. Again, Mercury is where we're like, well, wait a minute. That pattern maybe isn't correct. So in this full moon in Gemini, notice this story in your head. Notice your reflection about where you're questioning, how does all of this work? And are the things that I believe correct? And not in some kind of harsh way, in a fun way, in an enjoyable way, playing with ideas, playing with a new way of seeing things. And when someone says something like, why do you, this 111 numerology, there's nothing wrong with numerology. Numerology is correct, but to see it in an arbitrary Gregorian calendar date, or on a license plate, or on the, clock on the stove, or, do you know how many times I look at the clock right at 111? Or, okay, again, there's nothing wrong with it. And numerology is right. But the point is also that synchronicity, thinking that that's an important synchronicity, is missing out on all of the other synchronicities. You're saying that is synchronicity, when frankly, every day is, every moment, there's actual synchronicity and actual portals. Every day is a portal. Every moment is a portal. So even when I made that post, or when I'm explaining something like that, it's not to demean, it's to say, look, rather than put meaning on arbitrary things, how about put meaning on everything? Everything is a meaningful thing. So again, and there's a way to say, if we're just going to pull something out randomly and say, that's the thing, nothing is random. Every moment is a portal. Every day is a portal. The moon is in this nakshatra. It's in this certain thing. It's, every moment, every day is a portal, so to speak. And so the Gemini moment is to question all of these beliefs that we have, right? And this nakshatra, it's in Punarvasu Nakshatra. Punarvasu is ruled by the goddess called Aditi, who is the mother of the Adityas. The Adityas are the aspects of god, you would say, that are the children, the progeny of Aditi, who are here to give life and providence on earth. For example, Savitur is one of the Adityas, Vishwakarma, Pushan, these gods of abundance and that give life to earth, that allow us to live a happy life on earth. They're called Adityas. And a lot of them rule the nakshatras in the section of the zodiac that is from Leo to Scorpio, right? Like you have Bhaga, who is the god of delight, one of the Adityas. You have Aryaman was an Aditya. Then you have Savitur, an Aditya. Then you have Vishwakarma, one of the Adityas. You have Anuradha, which is Mitra. So these are all gods that help us here on earth to manifest, to find friendship, to find beauty, joy, happiness. I mean, earth could just be a hellscape, but it's not. It's beautiful. We have enjoyable people. There's a beauty and whatnot. So this nakshatra here, as you see the degrees, it's happening at about 29 degrees. And it's right where Gemini becomes Cancer. So this transition here is where that intelligence, discrimination of Gemini and all of the things I talked about, questioning, trying to see how those things you believe, how do they work? Do they make sense? Do I understand them? Again, that's really the biggest thing. Do I really understand what I believe? Because again, if we don't understand what we believe, then we don't benefit from it. And we have to understand it, then it becomes integrated into our mind, and then the stories start to change. The story changes. And instead of just grasping for random beliefs to give us some hope, oh, this gives me hope, this thing that I don't really understand, but it gives me hope. It's like, oh, I know how this works. It's not just grasping. It's not just blind faith. So once that comes into our head, then it has to go into our heart. And Punarvasu is that nakshatra between Gemini and Cancer that takes those concepts in our heart. Because again, Gemini can be too in their head, right? Very much about all these ideas. But that integration into the heart is Punarvasu Nakshatra, where we then give birth to that idea. It becomes more than just an intellectual concept. It becomes something that is felt and that is experienced on a deeper level. And so these are the biggest shifts that we have right now that are really taking place. Again, like I said before, if you're interested in knowing how this affects you, as you see, there's already the full moon in this full moon in Gemini forecast in, this full moon in Gemini for all 12 signs. I already did that last night. You also have the other weekly forecast. These are all part of the membership at different levels. If you get the full membership, you also get these courses. I taught a course yesterday on the evolutionary process of all the planets. This coming weekend, I'm teaching planets in signs and planets in houses at the oracle level. And at that level, you wind up getting classes, ongoing courses and whatnot. So I've tried to make that a place of learning as well. But aside from that, every full moon is important. The things to understand about this one is that this full moon happens in opposition or opposite Sagittarius, where we're still in this cycle of hope, inspiration, wisdom. We're still trying to clarify what we believe and how it's really helping us. Is it really benefiting us? Do these things we believe, again, really help us or benefit us? Or is it kind of a desperate grasping for straws? You see, and that's what That's the negative quality, or the the difficulty of just having beliefs that are just like blind faith, whether it's Christian or New Age beliefs. If they're just beliefs, they do give us hope and inspiration. And again, this is why when I made the comments about those who were like, oh, 111, and then I said something like, oh, how mean of you. It's like, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying, how about really understanding all of the miracles? Every second, every moment is a miracle. You don't have to wait for some arbitrary moment that you look at a clock or this or that. It's every day, because that's actually how it works. The miracle portal of today, again, and I talked about this in the Vedic week ahead forecast. Today is ruled by the moon, so it's Chandravar, it's Punarvasu Nakshatra, it's Mithuna Rashi, and it's Purnima Tithi. This is a portal. This is a portal. Every day is a portal. The portal of this doesn't come around again. It's going to be only this day. That you also have Mars in Cancer, Jupiter in Taurus, Saturn, Venus in Aquarius. As much as you might think this happens all the time, understand something. These things never repeat, ever. Every day is a unique portal. Every day. This moment will never happen again. This day will never happen again. And it's not just arbitrary. You can know exactly what the aspects are of this moment that makes it completely different than every other moment, or let's say this day. You're not going to have it again. It doesn't repeat. So again, this is what I'm saying. And it's not that overwhelming. It's just a bunch of details layered together. You could see it. I'm Gemini, so this is why I learn this kind of stuff, and this is why I encourage other people to learn it, because it's amazing and fascinating, and you won't believe how your mind expands once you start to actually learn how this stuff works. So you're going out finding information on all kinds of stuff. So why not learn the system that has been around for thousands of years, that shows you every little portal? And again, that's why, in contrast to these things, even just the lunar day and the nakshatra is so much more specific than a Gregorian calendar date. In fact, the Gregorian calendar date is so arbitrary because it could, if it was a leap year, it would be a different time, et cetera, after February. Anyway, so not to get into that. But anyway, those resources are available to you. That's also why I'm talking about it. You don't have to learn all of it. You can just watch me do it every week. And so click that join where it says join under this video and look at the different levels. But anyway, aside from that, I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great Gemini full moon day. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel.